The first crack appeared on a Tuesday. I remember because Tuesdays were our date nights, a tradition we'd kept for 15 years of marriage. Rain or shine, busy schedules or exhaustion, we always made time for each other on Tuesdays. Until that particular Tuesday, when Theodore called to say he had to work late again. The third time that month. I sat at our dining table alone, the candles burning low, the meal I'd spent hours preparing growing cold. His favorite wine, a $90 bottle I'd splurged on, sat unopened. The house felt too quiet, too empty. Something felt wrong in my bones, the kind of wrongness that comes before disaster strikes. When the clock struck 11 and he still wasn't home, I called his office. No answer. I texted. Nothing. At midnight, I tried his cell one last time before taking 2 sleeping pills and forcing myself to bed. He crawled in at 2 a.m., smelling of unfamiliar perfume. I lay perfectly still, eyes closed, breathing steady. But I was wide awake. "Harper," he whispered, checking if I was asleep. I didn't answer. And he didn't try again. The next morning, he kissed me goodbye as if nothing had happened. His lips felt like a stranger's against my cheek. "I love you," he said easily, the words falling from his mouth like they always had. "Love you too," I replied automatically, the lifeless echo of a marriage I was beginning to suspect was already dead. After he left, I walked through our home slowly, touching the photographs on the walls, our wedding day, our trip to Italy, his law firm's opening celebration. 15 years of memories. 15 years I had given him, believing we were building something unbreakable. I checked his credit card statements that afternoon. 3 charges at a hotel downtown, all on different Tuesdays. Dinner receipts for 2 at restaurants we had never visited together. A jewelry purchase from Tiffany's 2 weeks ago, nothing I had ever received. My hands didn't shake. My breathing remained steady. I felt oddly calm as I scrolled through page after page of evidence that my husband was living another life without me. That evening, I cooked dinner as usual. When Theodore came home, I served his favorite meal, poured his favorite scotch, and smiled across the table at him. "How was your day?" I asked, the same question I'd asked thousands of times before. "Busy. Stressful. The Harrison case is killing me," he replied, not meeting my eyes. "You should take some time off. We could go away for a weekend." "Can't right now. Maybe next month." I nodded, taking a slow sip of wine. "I understand. Work comes first." Later, while he showered, I checked his phone. It was a violation of privacy I had never committed in 15 years of marriage. But that night, I didn't hesitate. Her name was Ava. She worked at his law firm, a junior associate, 28 years old. Their text messages went back 8 months. I read them all, each one a fresh cut to my heart. "Missing you already. Last night was perfect. Can't wait to see you again. Tuesday feels too far away. You make me feel alive like no one else ever has." And the worst one, sent just 3 days ago, "I know it's complicated with Harper, but we'll figure it out. What we have is worth fighting for." I put his phone back exactly where he'd left it. When he came to bed, I pretended to be asleep again. For the next week, I became a detective in my own marriage. I followed him one Tuesday after work. Watched him meet her at a small French bistro, the kind of intimate place where couples fall in love. She was beautiful, of course. Tall and slender with long dark hair that fell in perfect waves. When she laughed at something he said, he looked at her the way he used to look at me, like she was the center of his universe. They held hands across the table. He touched her face in a way that was achingly familiar. After dinner, they went to a hotel, the same one that appeared on our credit card statements. I sat in my car across the street until they emerged 3 hours later. They kissed goodbye in the parking lot, a lingering kiss that told me everything I needed to know. This wasn't just sex. This was love. That night, when Theodore came home, I was waiting in the living room, all the lights off except for a single lamp. "Jesus, Harper. You scared me, he said, jumping slightly when he saw me. Why are you sitting in the dark? I was thinking, I replied softly. About what? About us. About how people change. About how someone can sleep beside you for 15 years and still be a complete stranger. He stiffened, his hand frozen on his tie. What are you talking about? I think you know, Theodore. His face changed then, guilt, fear, and something else flashing across his features. For a moment, I thought he might confess, might fall to his knees and beg forgiveness. Instead, he straightened his shoulders and said, I'm tired, Harper. Can we talk about whatever this is tomorrow? Sure, I said, smiling sadly. Tomorrow. But tomorrow never came. For the next month, he avoided any serious conversation. He came home late every night. More Tiffany purchases appeared on our credit card statement. More hotel charges. More dinners for two. I watched him pull away from me like a boat drifting from shore, slow at first, then faster and faster until I could barely see him anymore. On our anniversary, he forgot completely. No card, no flowers, not even a mention. When I reminded him over dinner, he looked stricken. Harper, I'm so sorry. Work has been busy. I know. I cut him off. It's fine. But it wasn't fine. Nothing was fine. Something inside me was shifting, changing, hardening. That night, I found an email he'd written to her but hadn't sent yet. It was saved in his drafts folder. Ava, I've been thinking about what you said. You're right, we can't keep living like this. Harper deserves better, and so do you. I'm going to talk to her after the Harrison case wraps up. It won't be easy after 15 years, but I can't pretend anymore. What I feel for you is real. More real than anything I've felt in years. I want a future with you. Just give me a little more time to figure out how to do this right. I closed his laptop carefully and returned it to his office. In that moment, something inside me broke. Or maybe it was finally fixed, some essential part of me that had been bent out of shape trying to accommodate his lies. The next day, I withdrew $50,000 from our joint savings account, money I'd inherited from my grandmother years ago and had added to our joint funds. I opened a new account at a different bank, one he didn't use. I called my old college roommate, Sophia, who worked as a private investigator now. I need everything you can find on someone named Ava Winters, I told her. She works at Theodore's firm. Harper, are you okay? Sophia asked, concern evident in her voice. No, I answered honestly. But I will be. 3 days later, Sophia delivered a folder to me over coffee at a cafe far from my neighborhood. You sure you want this? She asked, her hand resting protectively on the folder. I need to know who she is, I said. I need to know who he chose over me. The folder contained Ava's entire life story. 28 years old, as I'd guessed. Graduated top of her class from Yale Law. Joined Theodore's firm 2 years ago. Previously engaged to a surgeon who'd cheated on her with a nurse, the irony wasn't lost on me. No criminal record, but 2 DUIs that had somehow been expunged from her record. Her father was a federal judge in Connecticut. Her mother was old money. She lived in a luxury apartment downtown that cost more than she should have been able to afford on her salary. And there was something else, something that made my blood run cold. Ava Winters had a pattern. This wasn't her first affair with a married partner at the firm. There had been 2 others before Theodore. Both men had divorced their wives. One had married Ava briefly before she left him for the next. The other had been financially ruined in his divorce, largely due to evidence of his affair with Ava. She was a climber, a user. And Theodore was just her latest stepping stone. I put the folder away and began to form a plan. I spent the next 3 months watching and waiting. During that time, Theodore grew more distant. Our conversations became shorter, more functional. Our marriage was dying in slow motion, but he didn't have the courage to end it cleanly. I learned from Sophia that Ava was pressuring him to leave me. She wanted the big house, the successful husband, the status that came with being Mrs. Theodore Reynolds. She wanted my life. I could have confronted him then. Could have thrown the evidence in his face, demanded a divorce, taken half of everything including his precious law firm. Our prenup had a fidelity clause that would have given me even more. But that would have been too easy. Too expected. And it would have given them exactly what they wanted, freedom to be together. No, I wanted something more lasting. Something they would never see coming. I started by befriending Ava. It wasn't difficult. I volunteered for a charity fundraiser that his law firm was sponsoring. When I arrived at the planning meeting, I made sure to sit next to her. "You must be Ava," I said warmly, extending my hand. "I'm Harper Reynolds. Theodore has mentioned what great work you're doing on the Harrison case." Her face went pale, then flushed. She shook my hand limply. "Mrs. Reynolds. It's so nice to meet you. Theodore talks about you all the time." "Does he?" I smiled. "All good things, I hope." Throughout the meeting, I was friendly, engaging, the perfect corporate wife. I mentioned my background in marketing, a career I'd stepped back from to support Theodore's ambitions. By the end of the night, I had positioned myself as a valuable asset to the fundraising committee and established a rapport with Ava. "We should get coffee sometime," I suggested as we were leaving. "I'd love to hear more about your career path. Theodore says you're on track to make partner remarkably fast." She looked like she might be sick. "That would be nice." Over the next few weeks, I inserted myself into Ava's professional life. I became indispensable to the charity committee. I offered marketing insights that dramatically improved their fundraising strategy. I brought Ava into the spotlight, making sure senior partners noticed her contributions, which were actually mine. All while maintaining the facade of a blissfully ignorant wife. Theodore was terrified when he found out Ava and I were working together. "What are you doing with the charity thing?" he demanded one night. "You've never been interested in firm events before." "I thought it was time I got more involved," I replied calmly. "Besides, I've made a new friend. Ava is lovely, isn't she? So ambitious." He looked at me searchingly, trying to determine if I knew. I kept my expression pleasant, unreadable. "Harper, if you're busy with other things, you don't need to." "Nonsense. I'm enjoying myself. Ava and I are having lunch next week. She's going to tell me all about the Harrison case." The blood drained from his face. "Lunch? My idea." She seemed hesitant at first, but I insisted. "I want to get to know the rising stars at your firm." That night, I monitored their text exchanges through the spyware Sophia had helped me install on his phone. She knows. She has to know. Maybe not. Maybe she's just being friendly. Nobody's that friendly to their husbands, to someone like me. Just be careful what you say to her. Don't mention anything about us. This is getting too complicated, Theodore. You promised you'd tell her after the Harrison case. That was weeks ago. I will. I just need to find the right time. I smiled as I read their panicked exchanges. The right time would never come because I was controlling the narrative now. My lunch with Ava was a masterclass in psychological warfare. I was warm, open, seemingly oblivious. I shared stories about Theodore, little intimate details that only a wife would know. His habit of singing in the shower. How he couldn't sleep without the fan on. The way he liked his coffee. With each story, I watched her squirm, guilt and jealousy warring on her face. "He works so late these days," I said with a small sigh. "The Harrison case must be all-consuming." "Yes," she said quickly. "We're all working overtime." "Well, it's worth it for his career." "I've always believed in sacrificing for the long term," I said, reaching across the table to touch her hand. "That's what makes a relationship work, knowing when to step back and let them shine." Her eyes filled with tears. She quickly blinked away. You seem like a wonderful wife. I try to be the partner he deserves, I said, holding her gaze until she looked away. Anyway, enough about boring married life. Tell me about you. Are you seeing anyone special? She nearly choked on her water. No. Not really. I'm focused on my career right now. Smart girl. Men can be such a distraction. After lunch, I hugged her goodbye. This was lovely. We should make it a regular thing. I could feel her stiffen in my embrace. That evening, Theodore came home earlier than usual. He found me in the garden, cutting roses. How was your lunch with Ava? He asked, trying to sound casual. Delightful. She's smart, isn't she? I can see why you value her at the firm. I handed him a rose, its thorns carefully left intact. I invited her to dinner next week. I thought it would be nice to have some of your colleagues over. Show off that wine collection you're so proud of. He pricked his finger on the thorn and winced. Harper, you don't need to go to all that trouble. It's no trouble. I want to know the people in your life. I watched a drop of blood form on his fingertip. After all, we don't want to be one of those couples who drift apart, do we? The dinner party was set for the following Thursday. I invited 4 other lawyers from his firm, including the managing partner and his wife. Ava tried to back out twice, but I insisted, telling her the managing partner had specifically asked if she would be there. On the morning of the dinner, I visited Theodore's office unannounced, bringing lunch for him and Ava since you're both working so hard. The other partners thought I was the perfect, supportive wife. Ava looked like she wanted the floor to swallow her whole. I set their food on his desk, deliberately arranging it so they would have to eat together, then kissed Theodore on the cheek. Don't work too late, darling. We have guests at 7. That night, I wore a dress I knew Theodore loved, a deep blue that matched my eyes. I prepared all his favorite foods. The table was set perfectly, candles lit, music playing softly. When the guests arrived, I was the consummate hostess. Ava arrived last, looking uncomfortable in a conservative black dress that did nothing for her. Ava. I'm so glad you could make it, I exclaimed, hugging her in front of everyone. Theodore has been singing your praises nonstop. Throughout dinner, I was brilliant, charming, witty, the kind of corporate wife who enhances her husband's image. I made sure Ava was seated directly across from Theodore, where they would have to look at each other but couldn't communicate privately. I kept the wine flowing and the conversation engaging. Then, as we moved to the living room for coffee and dessert, I struck. Ava, I said warmly, Theodore tells me you've been instrumental in the Harrison case. But he's been so closed-lipped about the details. The room went quiet. The Harrison case was highly confidential, involving a prominent CEO accused of fraud. Ava glanced nervously at Theodore. Oh, I can't really discuss. Oh, come now, I pressed, smiling. We're all friends here. And I'm just fascinated by what you've uncovered. The managing partner, Robert, frowned slightly. What exactly has Theodore shared about the case, Harper? I widened my eyes innocently. Well, just what Ava found in the offshore accounts. It's quite clever how she traced the money. Ava's face drained of color. Theodore looked like he might pass out. I don't recall authorizing any discussion of case details outside the firm, Robert said sharply, looking between Theodore and Ava. Oh. I put my hand to my mouth. Have I said something wrong? Theodore and I talk about everything. I assumed if he was discussing it with Ava outside the office, it must be all right. The implication hung in the air, Theodore and Ava, together outside the office. I've never discussed the case with Harper, Theodore said quickly, his voice tight. I'm not sure where this is coming from. I frowned, looking confused. But darling, you told me all about it last Tuesday night when you came home late. You said you and Ava had been working on it and made a breakthrough. Last Tuesday, when I knew he'd been at a hotel with Ava. The room temperature seemed to drop 10 degrees. Robert's wife, Jean, a sharp-eyed woman who had been watching the dynamics all evening, gave me a knowing look. Perhaps I misunderstood, I said softly. I've had rather a lot of wine. But the seed was planted. After the guests left, Theodore exploded. What the hell was that? Are you trying to get me fired? To get Ava fired? I'm sure I don't know what you mean, I replied calmly. I simply mixed up some details. It happens. You don't mix things up, Harper. You never have. I stepped closer to him, dropping all pretense of ignorance. No, I don't. Just like I haven't mixed up where you were last Tuesday night. Or the Tuesday before that. Or all the Tuesdays for the past 8 months. He went completely still. Harper. Don't. I held up my hand. Don't insult me with lies or excuses. I know everything, Theodore. About Ava. About all of it. Why didn't you say something? I laughed, a hollow sound. I'm saying it now. And I'm going to keep saying it, in my own way, on my own timeline. What does that mean? It means you should have been more careful who you betrayed. He reached for me, but I stepped back. Harper, please. We need to talk about this. I never meant to hurt you. That's the thing about consequences, Theodore. They come whether you meant them or not. I turned and walked upstairs to our bedroom, locking the door behind me. He slept in the guest room that night. The dinner party was just the beginning. The next morning, Robert called Theodore into his office. I know because Ava texted him in a panic. Robert wants to see us both. Now. What did you tell your wife? I had positioned the first domino perfectly. Now I just needed to watch them fall. Theodore came home that evening looking ragged. Robert grilled us for an hour about the Harrison case, he said, pouring himself a double scotch. Wanted to know exactly what information might have been compromised. How unfortunate, I murmured, continuing to chop vegetables for dinner as if nothing was wrong. Was Ava helpful in clearing things up? His eyes narrowed. You know exactly what you did. Did I do something? I asked innocently. Besides misremember a conversation that apparently never happened? He slammed his glass down. Stop playing games. If you know about Ava and me, then say it outright. Tell me you want a divorce. Scream, throw things, whatever you need to do. But stop with these mind games. I set down my knife carefully. Is that what you want, Theodore? A divorce? He faltered. I don't know what I want anymore. Well, that makes one of us. I know exactly what I want. I picked up the knife again and resumed chopping. I want you to understand what you've done. Not just to me, but to yourself. What does that mean? You'll see. The next day, I had lunch with Jean, Robert's wife. Unlike the false friendship I'd cultivated with Ava, Jean and I connected genuinely. She was sharp, observant, and had suspected Theodore's affair long before I confirmed it. Men think they're so clever, she said over wine. But they leave evidence everywhere. Robert had an affair 10 years ago. Thought I didn't know. What did you do? I asked. She smiled thinly. I waited until he had invested everything in a new venture. Then I presented him with divorce papers and proof of the affair. Did you go through with it? The divorce? No. He begged for forgiveness. Signed over 30% of his company to me. We stayed together, but on my terms. She sipped her wine. The question is, what do you want, Harper? Do you want Theodore back or do you want him destroyed? I considered her question carefully. I want justice. And I think those two things might be mutually exclusive. Jean nodded approvingly. Then stop playing small games and go for the kill. But remember, keep evidence of everything. I was already doing exactly that. Every text, every credit card statement, every hotel receipt, I had copies of it all, securely stored with my attorney. Meanwhile, Ava was growing increasingly nervous. The scrutiny from the managing partner had put her in a precarious position. Theodore was distancing himself from her at work, afraid of raising more suspicion. She texted him constantly. "Are you avoiding me? We need to talk about what happened. Does she know? Did you tell her?" Theodore's responses were short, non-committal. He was panicking, unsure which way to turn. I continued my campaign of subtle pressure. I began showing up at firm events I'd previously avoided. I befriended other partners' wives, building alliances. I volunteered more time to the charity committee, positioning myself as an invaluable resource, and keeping close to Ava. At home, I was calm. I no longer asked Theodore where he'd been. I no longer checked his phone or his credit card statements. I didn't need to. Sophia kept me informed of their every move. Our marriage entered a strange limbo. We slept in the same bed but never touched. We ate meals together but barely spoke. He watched me constantly, waiting for the explosion that never came. One night, after a particularly tense dinner, he broke the silence. "What are you doing, Harper? Just tell me what you want." I looked at him thoughtfully. "Remember when we first met? You said I was different from other women you dated because I knew my own mind. That hasn't changed, Theodore. I still know exactly what I want. The question is whether you're prepared for what that means." He leaned forward, eyes desperate. "Just tell me. Do you want a divorce? Money? The house?" "No," I said simply. "I want you to choose." "Choose what?" "Choose me or choose her. Right now. No more limbo." "It's not that simple," he finally said. "Actually, it is. You're just too much of a coward to make the choice yourself. So let me help you." I stood up and went to get my purse. From it, I withdrew a folder, not unlike the one Sophia had given me months ago. I placed it on the table between us. "What's this?" he asked, not touching it. "Everything I know about Ava Winters. Including her previous affairs with married partners at your firm. Did you know you're the third? Did you know what happened to the others?" His hand trembled as he opened the folder. I watched his face as he absorbed the information, the same gut punch I had felt when I first learned the truth. "This can't be right," he muttered. "Every word is true. She's using you, Theodore. Just like she used the others. You're a stepping stone to her, a way to advance her career and social standing." "She loves me," he said, but doubt had crept into his voice. "Maybe she does. People can love what others can give them." I leaned forward. "So choose. Her or me. But know exactly what you're choosing." He closed the folder slowly. "I need time to think." "You've had 8 months to think. I'm done waiting." I stood up and placed an envelope next to the folder. "Divorce papers. Already filled out. Fair terms, more than fair, actually. If you choose her, sign them tonight and be gone in the morning." "And if I choose you?" he whispered. I looked at him long and hard. "Then burn this folder, delete her number, and be prepared to work harder than you've ever worked to rebuild what you destroyed." I left him sitting at the table and went upstairs. I didn't sleep that night, listening for his footsteps, waiting for his decision. At dawn, I heard the front door open and close. From our bedroom window, I watched him put a suitcase in his car and drive away. He had made his choice. When Theodore left, I thought I would feel victorious. Instead, I felt hollow. 15 years of marriage ended with the quiet click of our front door. No shouting, no tears, just silence and the low rumble of his car engine fading into the distance. I didn't call him. He didn't call me. 3 days passed in a strange, suspended state. I moved through our house like a ghost, touching the remnants of our life together. I should have been angry, devastated. Instead, I was calm, focused. On the 4th day, Sophia called. "He's moved into Ava's apartment," she said without wasting time. Thought you should know. Thank you, I replied, my voice steady. You okay? I'm exactly where I need to be. After we hung up, I sat at my desk and pulled out the second part of my plan, the part one had hoped wouldn't be necessary but had prepared for nonetheless. Theodore had chosen Ava. Now they would both face the consequences of that choice. I began with my attorney. The divorce papers Theodore had taken with him were indeed fair, on the surface. But they contained clauses that would activate only under certain conditions. Such as if Theodore attempted to transfer assets to a third party before the divorce was finalized. Or if he began cohabitating with someone named in the infidelity evidence. By moving in with Ava, he had tripped the first wire. My attorney filed amended divorce terms the next day, invoking the infidelity clause in our prenup. Instead of the 50-50 split I had initially proposed, I was now entitled to 60% of our assets, plus additional compensation for the damaged earning potential I had suffered by supporting his career. But financial consequences were just the beginning. I called Robert, the managing partner, and requested a meeting. I thought you should know, I told him in his office, voice quavering with carefully manufactured emotion, that I've filed for divorce. Theodore is, well, I'm sure you've guessed by now. He and Ava. Robert's face hardened. Harper, I'm so sorry. This puts the firm in a difficult position. I understand. And I wouldn't want to cause problems for the firm that's been so good to Theodore. That's actually why I'm here. I dabbed at my eyes with a tissue. There are some financial irregularities I've discovered. Things that concern me not just personally, but professionally. I slid a folder across his desk, different from the one I'd shown Theodore, but no less damaging. What am I looking at? Robert asked, frowning as he opened it. Theodore has been helping Ava manipulate billable hours. She's claimed credit for work she didn't do, and he signed off on it. There's also evidence they've been discussing confidential case information in compromising situations. Robert's face went from concern to thunderous. These are serious allegations. I know. That's why I came directly to you instead of the Bar Association. The threat was clear but unspoken, handle this internally, or I'd take it further. I'll need to investigate this immediately, Robert said, closing the folder. Of course. And Robert? I'd appreciate your discretion. Despite everything, I don't want to destroy Theodore. I just want what's fair. It was a lie, of course. I absolutely wanted to destroy Theodore, but methodically, surgically, leaving my own hands clean. As I left Robert's office, I received a text from Theodore. We need to talk. This divorce agreement isn't what you promised. I didn't respond. 3 hours later, he called. I let it go to voicemail. He called again. And again. Finally, I answered. Hello, Theodore. What the hell is this, Harper? 60%? Alimony? We agreed to fair terms. No, I corrected him calmly. I offered fair terms if you chose me. You chose her. These are the consequences. This is vindictive and you know it. Actually, it's quite reasonable given the circumstances. You committed adultery, violated our prenuptial agreement, and damaged my earning potential by encouraging me to step back from my career to support yours. I'll fight this, he threatened. I'll take you to court. Please do. I'm sure the partners at your firm would love to hear all the sordid details made public. Especially with the ethics complaint I've just filed. Silence on his end. Then, what ethics complaint? The one detailing how you and Ava manipulated billable hours and shared confidential client information during your liaisons. That's not true, he protested, but his voice had lost its certainty. It doesn't matter if it's true. What matters is that Robert is investigating it now. What matters is the doubt it casts on your professional judgment. What matters is that Ava's reputation at the firm is already hanging by a thread after your little indiscretion became obvious at our dinner party. You're trying to destroy my career. No, Theodore. You did that when you decided to sleep with a junior associate and compromise client confidentiality. I'm simply bringing it to light. Harper, please. Let's talk face to face. We can work this out. There's nothing to work out. You made your choice. I hung up without saying goodbye. That evening, I received a call from Jean. Robert told me what you did, she said, a note of admiration in her voice. Masterful. How is it playing out? I asked. Theodore and Ava have been suspended pending investigation. The ethics committee is reviewing all of their cases from the past year. No one wants to work with either of them. She paused. Robert thinks Theodore might survive it professionally, but Ava won't. Too junior, too many red flags in her history. Unfortunate, I said, not meaning it at all. Harper, Jean's voice turned serious, be careful. Cornered animals are dangerous. I appreciated her concern but wasn't worried. I had prepared for every contingency, including Theodore's rage. The security system had been upgraded the day after he moved out. My attorney had a restraining order ready to file at the first sign of trouble. But Theodore didn't come storming over. Instead, the next move came from Ava. She showed up at my door on a Sunday morning, eyes red from crying, hair pulled back in a messy ponytail, a far cry from the polished professional I'd met months ago. Can we talk? She asked when I opened the door. I considered turning her away, but curiosity won out. 5 minutes. She sat perched on the edge of my sofa, the same sofa where she and Theodore had probably plotted their future together during the many times he'd claimed to be working late from home. I know you hate me, she began. I don't hate you, I replied honestly. I don't know you well enough to hate you. Then why are you doing this? The ethics complaint? You know it could end my career. Actions have consequences, Ava. Surely a Yale law graduate understands that concept. She flinched. It wasn't what you think. Theodore and I fell in love? I supplied. Had something special? Couldn't help yourselves? Save it. I've read your text messages, seen your hotel receipts. I know exactly what it was. Then why target my career? If this is about Theodore betraying you, it's about both of you. You knew he was married. You pursued him anyway. You discussed confidential case information in non-secure locations. You compromised your professional ethics for personal gain. Why shouldn't those actions have professional consequences? She started crying then, ugly, heaving sobs that might have moved me once. Please, she begged. I'll end it with Theodore. I'll leave the firm. Just withdraw the complaint. I studied her dispassionately. Is that what Theodore sent you here to offer? Your sacrifice to save his career? Her silence was answer enough. He told you I'd be swayed by tears and promises, didn't he? That deep down I'm too soft-hearted to go through with this? I leaned forward. He doesn't know me at all, Ava. And neither do you. She wiped her tears angrily. You're a cold bitch. No, I corrected her. I'm a woman who gave 15 years to a man who threw it away for someone who would sell him out at the first sign of trouble. I glanced at my watch. Your 5 minutes are up. After she left, I called my attorney. Ava Winters just came to see me. Threatened and verbally abused me in my own home. I want that restraining order filed immediately, against both her and Theodore. It was a slight exaggeration of our encounter, but it served my purpose. The restraining order was approved the next day, another black mark against both of them in the eyes of the firm and the court handling our divorce. The law firm's investigation moved quickly. Within 2 weeks, both Theodore and Ava were called before the ethics committee. I wasn't present, of course, but Jean kept me informed. It was brutal, she told me over lunch. Robert presented all the evidence, the hotel receipts matching dates of client meetings, the inconsistencies in Ava's billable hours, text messages discussing case details. How did Theodore respond? I asked, sipping my water calmly. He tried to deny it at first, then shifted to minimizing. Said they'd discussed cases in general terms but never shared specifics that would violate confidentiality. Jean shook her head. Nobody believed him. Ava fell apart completely, started crying, then tried to blame Theodore for everything. And? The committee is recommending termination for Ava, immediately. Theodore is suspended for 3 months, no pay. He'll be on probation for a year after that, no partner track. She raised an eyebrow. He got off easy because of his seniority and record. Robert fought for him. I nodded slowly. It was exactly what I had anticipated. Ava takes the fall while Theodore survives. Typical. For now, Jean added with a knowing look. But the State Bar Association has been notified. There will be a separate ethics investigation there. I see. Harper, Jean leaned forward, you've played this perfectly so far. But I'm curious, what's your endgame? Do you want Theodore back? Do you want him ruined? I thought about her question. I want him to understand what he's lost. I want him to realize that Ava was never worth what he sacrificed. And then I want to move on with my life, knowing he'll spend the rest of his regretting his choices. Jean raised her glass in a toast. To consequences. That evening, I received a text from Theodore. They fired Ava today. I'm suspended without pay. Are you satisfied now? I didn't respond. The next day, another message. She's blaming me for everything. Says I manipulated her. You've turned her against me just like you turned the firm against us. Again, I didn't respond. The third message came at midnight. I made a mistake. The biggest mistake of my life. Please, Harper. Talk to me. This time, I replied. Sign the divorce papers. By morning, his tone had changed. You won't get away with this. I know what you did, the spyware, the manipulated evidence. I'll tell everyone. I forwarded the message to my attorney with a simple note, add this to the harassment documentation. The restraining order meant Theodore couldn't come to the house. He was living in a small apartment now. Ava had thrown him out after she was fired, blaming him for ruining her career. Sophia confirmed they'd had a vicious public fight at a restaurant, with Ava shouting that he'd promised to leave me months ago, that he was a coward who had destroyed her life. I almost felt sorry for him. Almost. A week later, my attorney called. Theodore wants to settle. He's willing to accept your terms if you'll withdraw the ethics complaint with the Bar Association. Tell him it's too late, I replied. The complaint has been filed. It's out of my hands now. Harper, my attorney said carefully, he's offering to waive alimony claims against your future earnings. He's essentially walking away with 40% and nothing else. That's a very favorable settlement for you. I don't care about the money, David. I care about justice. There was a pause on the line. This is starting to look vindictive to the court. It could backfire. Then let it backfire, I said firmly. I'm not withdrawing the complaint. 2 days later, Theodore showed up at my office, technically not a violation of the restraining order, which only covered our home. 5 minutes, he pleaded as my assistant tried to block him. Please, Harper. I nodded to my assistant. It's fine, Tracy. Mr. Reynolds can have 5 minutes. He looked terrible, dark circles under his eyes, clothes wrinkled as if he'd slept in them. Part of me, the part that had loved him for 15 years, ached at the sight. The rest of me remained unmoved. What do you want, Theodore? I want this to stop, he said, his voice ragged. The bar complaint will end my career, Harper, everything I've worked for, gone. Everything we worked for, I corrected him. Or have you forgotten the dinner parties I hosted to impress your clients? The vacations I canceled when big cases came in? The career opportunities one passed up to support yours? He slumped into the chair opposite my desk. I haven't forgotten. I took you for granted. I know that now. Took me for granted? I repeated incredulously. Is that what you call sleeping with another woman for 8 months? Planning to leave me? Lying to my face every day? I made a terrible mistake, he said, running a hand through his disheveled hair. She was exciting, different. She made me feel important, needed. And I didn't? You did, but it was different with her. She looked up to me professionally. She was impressed by everything I said and did. With you, I was just Theodore. Regular, flawed Theodore. I stared at him, suddenly understanding everything with crystal clarity. So that's what this was about. Your ego. You needed someone to worship you because you couldn't handle being truly known. He flinched. That's not fair. Isn't it? Ava stroked your ego, made you feel like a big shot. Until things got difficult. Then she turned on you instantly. I leaned forward. Tell me, Theodore, who's standing by you now? Who's helping you through this crisis? Not Ava. She's blaming you for everything. Not your colleagues, they've all distanced themselves. You're alone because you chose someone who wanted what you could give her over someone who loved who you actually are. Tears filled his eyes. I know. God, Harper, I know. That's why I'm here. I'm begging you, give me another chance. Withdraw the complaint. Let me try to fix this. For a moment, I wavered. The man before me was broken, humbled. The vindictive part of me rejoiced at the sight, but another part, the part that remembered how it felt to love him, stirred with something like pity. It's too late, Theodore, I said finally. Some things can't be fixed. Some betrayals cut too deep. Please, he whispered. I still love you. No, I replied gently. You love what I represented, stability, acceptance, a safe harbor. You didn't love me enough to be faithful. You didn't love me enough to be honest. And now, you only want me back because everything else has fallen apart. He buried his face in his hands. What do you want me to do? Tell me how to make this right. Sign the divorce papers. Accept the bar's judgment. And then rebuild your life with the understanding that actions have consequences, sometimes permanent ones. He looked up, a flash of the old Theodore showing through. And if I fight? If I tell them you hacked my phone, planted evidence? Then you'll only dig yourself deeper, I said calmly. I have documentation of everything, Theodore. Every hotel charge. Every lie about working late. Every text to Ava. Fighting will only make it worse. His shoulders sagged in defeat. You've thought of everything, haven't you? I had 5 months to plan while you were busy betraying me. He stood slowly, looking older than his 43 years. I never meant to hurt you, Harper. That's the God's honest truth. I believe you, I said, surprising both of us. But you did hurt me. And now we both have to live with the consequences. After he left, I sat at my desk for a long time, allowing myself to feel the full weight of what was happening, what I was doing. There was no joy in his destruction, no satisfaction in watching him fall apart. There was only the hollow certainty that justice was being served, bitter though it might be. That night, the divorce papers arrived by courier, signed. The Bar Association's investigation took 3 months. During that time, I rebuilt my life piece by piece. I returned to my marketing career full-time, leveraging contacts I'd maintained even while supporting Theodore's rise. I sold our house, too many memories, too many ghosts, and bought a sleek apartment downtown with floor-to-ceiling windows that flooded the space with light. I traveled, first to Italy where Theodore and I had honeymooned, reclaiming it as my own, then to places we'd never been together, Japan, New Zealand, Morocco. I went alone, finding a peculiar peace in solitude. The divorce was finalized quietly. Theodore didn't contest anything. He took his 40% and disappeared from my life. From time to time, Jean would update me on firm gossip. Ava had moved to Boston, trying to salvage her career at a smaller firm. Theodore, suspended and disgraced, was keeping a low profile. I thought I was done with both of them until the day I received a thick manila envelope with no return address. Inside was a handwritten letter from Ava. Harper. You don't owe me anything, least of all your time. But I need you to know the truth. I targeted Theodore deliberately. Not because I was attracted to him or even particularly liked him. I targeted him because he was successful and married to you. You probably don't remember this, but we met once before, years ago. I was interviewing for a summer associate position at Ellsworth & Partners. You were still working there in marketing. You gave a presentation to the incoming associates about the firm's branding. Afterwards, I approached you with questions. You were dismissive. Told me to focus on my legal skills and leave the marketing to professionals. You probably don't even remember the interaction, but I never forgot it. When I joined Theodore's firm 2 years ago and realized you were his wife, I saw an opportunity for payback. I've made many mistakes in my life, but what I did to you, to your marriage, was unforgivable. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm not even asking for understanding. I just thought you deserved to know that none of this was random. None of it was love. It was calculated revenge for a slight you probably don't even remember. I'm leaving the legal profession. Moving abroad to teach English. My career is over anyway, thanks to the bar complaint. I hope you find happiness again someday. You deserve it more than either of us. Ava. I read the letter 3 times, trying to remember the interaction she described. Nothing came to mind. Had I really changed the course of so many lives with a thoughtless comment I couldn't even recall? I showed the letter to Sophia over dinner that night. Do you believe her? Sophia asked after reading it. I don't know, I admitted. It seems far-fetched, but also strangely plausible. Either way, it doesn't change what Theodore did, Sophia pointed out. Even if she targeted him, he made the choice to cheat. True. I took a sip of wine. But it changes how I feel about it, somehow. If it was all based on some petty revenge against me, then it was never about you being inadequate or him finding something in her that you couldn't give him, Sophia finished my thought. It was just a trap he walked into. Exactly. I felt a weight lifting, one I hadn't even realized I was carrying. It doesn't excuse him, but it makes it easier to move on, Sophia supplied. And she was right. Something shifted in me after reading Ava's letter. The last tendrils of bitterness began to dissolve, leaving room for something else, not forgiveness, exactly, but a kind of release. 2 weeks later, the Bar Association issued its ruling. Theodore would be suspended from practicing law for 1 year and would be on probation for 2 years after that. His career would survive, but barely. He would never achieve the heights he'd once aspired to. I felt nothing when I heard the news. No triumph, no vindication. Just a quiet acknowledgement that the story was reaching its end. That evening, I received a text from an unknown number. I heard about the bar's decision. It's fair. More than fair, really. I wanted to thank you for not pushing for disbarment. I know you could have. I don't deserve your mercy, but I'm grateful for it nonetheless. I hope you're finding peace. T. I stared at the message for a long time, debating whether to respond. It was never about destroying you, Theodore. It was about justice. I hope you find your way back to the man I thought I married. His reply came instantly. I'm trying. Every day. I put my phone away without responding further. There was nothing left to say. 6 months later, I was having lunch with Jean when she mentioned casually, Theodore is leaving the firm. Taking a position teaching law at his alma mater. Good for him, I said, surprised to find I meant it. He's different now, Jean continued, watching me carefully. Quieter. More thoughtful. Robert says he's been doing pro bono work with domestic violence victims. People can change, I acknowledged. If they want to badly enough. He asks about you sometimes, Jean added. Not in a creepy way. He just wants to know if you're happy. And what do you tell him? The truth, Jean smiled. That you're flourishing. That your agency is thriving. That you laugh more now than you did in the last years of your marriage. I nodded, pleased that it was true. My life had expanded in ways I couldn't have imagined when I was Mrs. Theodore Reynolds. I was dating occasionally, though nothing serious. I had reconnected with old friends, made new ones. My career was soaring. Are you? Jean asked suddenly. Happy, I mean. I considered the question seriously. I'm content. I'm building something new. Something that's entirely mine. And the revenge? Jean raised an eyebrow. Was it worth it? It wasn't about revenge in the end, I said slowly, realizing the truth as I spoke it. It was about refusing to be a victim. About making sure they both understood that actions have consequences. And now? Now I'm ready to close that chapter completely. As if the universe heard my declaration, my phone buzzed with a text. It was Theodore again. I'm moving to Chicago next month. Teaching position. Before I go, I'd like to return something that belongs to you. Coffee? No pressure. Just 10 minutes of your time. I showed Jean the message. Are you going to go? She asked. I think so, I said, surprising myself. Whatever he has, I might as well get it back. Be careful, Jean warned. Men like Theodore, they can be charming when they want something. I'm not the same woman he manipulated before, I reminded her. I know exactly who he is now. We met at a neutral coffee shop, not one of our old haunts. He arrived early, waiting at a corner table with 2 cups already in front of him. He looked better than the last time I'd seen him. Still older, still carrying the weight of his mistakes, but clean-shaven, clear-eyed. His smile was tentative when he saw me. Harper. Thank you for coming. You said you had something of mine, I replied, sitting across from him but not touching the coffee he'd ordered for me. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet pouch. Your grandmother's ring. I took it when I moved out. Not to keep it from you, but because, well, it represented everything I was throwing away. I took the pouch, opened it carefully. Inside was my grandmother's emerald ring, a family heirloom I'd worn every day until the divorce proceedings began. I'd assumed it was lost in the move. Thank you, I said, genuinely touched that he'd kept it safe. I wanted to return it in person, he explained. And to tell you something before I leave. I waited, wary but curious. You were right, he said simply. About everything. About Ava using me. About me needing someone to stroke my ego. About me throwing away the best thing in my life because I couldn't recognize its value. He took a deep breath. I'm not telling you this to try to win you back. That ship has sailed, and I know it. I'm telling you because I want you to know that what you did, the way you handled everything, it forced me to face myself. To grow. I'm glad, I said. I don't expect forgiveness, he continued. I don't deserve it. But I want you to know that I understand now what I did to you. The depth of the betrayal. And I'm sorry, Harper. Truly, deeply sorry. I studied his face, the face I'd once known better than my own. There was genuine remorse there, and something else. Acceptance. I forgive you, Theodore, I said finally. The words felt strange on my tongue but right in my heart. Not for your sake, but for mine. I'm ready to let go of the anger. He blinked rapidly, eyes shining with unshed tears. Thank you. That means everything. We sat in silence for a moment, the weight of our shared history between us. Will you be okay? I asked eventually. In Chicago? He nodded. It's a fresh start. Teaching was always my passion before I got seduced by corporate law and its rewards. He smiled ruefully. Funny how life comes full circle. Yes, I agreed. Funny. We finished our coffee in surprisingly comfortable conversation. He told me about his teaching position. I told him about my agency. We carefully avoided mentions of Ava or the divorce or the destruction that had led us here. As we prepared to leave, he hesitated, then asked, "Can I ask you something?" The bar complaint, "You could have pushed for disbarment. Robert told me they were considering it. But you specifically requested suspension instead. Why?" I considered lying, telling him it was mercy or compassion. But he deserved the truth. "Because destroying your career wouldn't undo what happened," I said. "And because I wanted you to have the chance to become a better man. Not for me, for whoever comes next." He nodded slowly, understanding. "Thank you. For that chance. I won't waste it." We parted with an awkward hug, 15 years of love and betrayal and pain and growth compressed into one brief embrace. As I walked away, the weight of my grandmother's ring in my palm, I realized something important. My revenge hadn't just transformed Theodore. It had transformed me. I was stronger now. Clearer about what I wanted. Unafraid to demand justice. Unwilling to be diminished. He had chosen his mistress over me, it was true. But in the end, she had destroyed him, just not in the way either of them had expected. And from that destruction, both Theodore and I had emerged changed. Not healed, exactly. But healing. I slipped my grandmother's ring back onto my finger. Not as a reminder of what I'd lost, but of what I'd gained, the knowledge that I was more powerful than anyone, including myself, had ever suspected. As I walked home through the autumn afternoon, I felt lighter than I had in years. The chapter was finally closed. The justice served. The lessons learned. And ahead of me stretched a future entirely of my own making.
I hope you enjoyed this thrilling journey. On a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate this story? Let me know in the comments below. Your feedback inspires more epic tales.